Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Creative Mornings and RJ, everybody for being out here. We're really excited to be here and thrilled to be able to share this with you. Also, I want to thank quick Tina Roth-Eisenberg. Without her, we wouldn't be here. She's the inventor of Creative Mornings, if you will. Also want to thank her son, Jesse. I use Facebook every day. Really awesome. Thank you, Remcat, as well. Quick type nugget here. This is a biform logo type, meaning the uppercase and the lowercase characters are the same height. They did an excellent job. I think this is done in-house. Is this in-house? Yes. Yeah. Very nice job, Remcat. Thank you guys for coming and seeing us talk. Really, it's you're giving your time, and that is really awesome. Thank you to the universe. Literally existed since the beginning of time, and it's fucking awesome that we get to be here in this room, talking to you guys. We're traveling at like some billion, whatever miles per hour. It's unreal. So we're gonna do a quick whiz through a brief introduction. 60 miles an hour, and we're going to show, this is Richard, this guy right here. Richard is a designer, developer, and a copywriter. He's also 3-time Pinewood Derby champion.
And this is Johnny, also a designer, sustainability guru, print production specialist. That's a really tough one.
That's good.
And significantly taller than the average person. And as you know, we're co-owners of Cast Iron Design. And in addition, we teach a typography course at CU Boulder.
Yep. Cool. Oh, you guys for 8, whatever this is, 7 something in the morning, you guys are really going really well so far. 9:23, okay. Our motto is design for good, not evil, and we'll get to kind of what we mean by that. Our mission statement is, in this country, you got to make the money first, and when you get the money, you get the power, then when you get the power, then you get the women. Just making sure you guys are awake, so we need to have this slide, cut it, that's actually Tony Montana's mission statement, not our mission statement. We do have a mission statement. This is the real one. RJ spoiled it earlier, RJ.
Sorry.
That's totally okay. We pair good design with positive impact by creating memorable brands, implementing environmentally responsible practices, and helping the design community do the same. So Richard's going to talk a little bit about our conception.
So we chose to name ourselves Cast Iron Design because the cast iron has a lot of traits that we want to align what we do with, like timelessness, functionality, durability, sustainability, pancakeability. We met in Minnesota in undergrad, and then Johnny moved to Arizona to work on his master's, and we started our business long distance over the internet.
Kind of like internet dating for businesses.
And once Johnny graduated, we packed our bags and set our roots in Boulder. A lot of people ask us why we chose Boulder, and mostly because of the hippies. Not so much these kinds of hippies, although we like them too, but like the eco hippies, the Whole Foods, the sustainable people. It's nice to be surrounded by like-minded folk and businesses that are trying to do good things. Another reason is the booming business, which is pretty key. It's one of the top places to start a business right now, which is a nice thing when you're providing a service to businesses. The open space is pretty awesome. You can literally walk out your door and be like on top of a mountain in a couple hours.
I took this photo last weekend, for real. No, I'm totally serious too.
As far as the climate goes, it's definitely helpful that it's not Minnesota. And that's not Arizona.
We're going to go through our services real quick, just kind of give you guys an idea. If you haven't seen our website, some of you in the audience don't know who we are. We'll kind of just show you what we do. Everything we do starts with brand identity, 95% of the time. We do work with existing brands, but usually we're developing something. As far as brands that you may know us from, we recently redid all of the Alpine Modern stuff. They just opened a cafe in Boulder recently. That is awesome. You guys should check it out. We also are responsible for the Finkel and Garf stuff. If you've seen that, they're just started distributing in Denver, I believe. But a brewery out in Boulder, that's really great. And then we move on to whatever makes sense for the project. The client collateral, we'll do business cards, stationery systems, and apparel, t-shirts, that kind of thing, and print and editorial. This is a book we designed. We've also done do posters and little tchotchkes, notebooks, whatever it is that makes sense. And we also do interactive, so that includes websites like this website we built for Finkel and Garf, apps, which is something that we started to get into. User experience, UX, planning out what a website looks like, and development. In-house development is key to making a great website, we think, and we spend a lot of time getting that workflow worked out. Copywriting is something that not a lot of graphic design businesses do, that we started doing out of necessity, and it's become sort of a little bit of a unique trademark for us. We'll come up with taglines, slogans, that sort of thing. We've also done naming for clients, and any sort of signage, environmental design, whether it be exterior signage or wayfinding, and so on. And then we also, excuse me, illustration. This is a poster we did for Patton Oswalt. We're doing another one later on in the summer. And then packaging as well. So we kind of get into a lot of different areas. Richard is going to go talk about some of our more fringe services.
So there are a few things that we don't do nearly as often, but we do enjoy to offer as a service. One of those is balloon animals. We're available for hire. One condition, snakes only. Prairie dog photography. We live right by this field. These are all taken like a block from our office. Hand modeling.
That's all Richard's.
Washboard solos. And we're available when the situation arises as substitute astronauts. All right. So, like many lectures, these types of lectures, the core of what we're talking about today is good design, what you can do to create good design. And we really like that phrase because we like the word good. It has a lot of different connotations. All right, so there's a few different definitions for good. So this is how we apply it to good design. The first definition is a favorable character or tendency. Another way to say that is good form. Having the qualities required for a role or good function. And this last definition, virtuous, right, or commendable, or for short, good ethics. So we think all three of these qualities are important to achieve good design. But today we're going to focus on the most often neglected one.
We're going to look at this through the lens of what we call our triple-pronged plan to preserve the planet. If that's a little bit long for you, we have an acronym that might be helpful. TTPP, TPTP. Help you remember it. This is all about implementing action. The theme of this month's talk is action, and we think that there is a lot of things that we can do to implement environmentally responsible practices into our professional practices. So we're starting with personal practices, and that's really how the things that you can do yourself and what kind of effect they have on the business, the things that you consume as an individual. The second prong is production is your prerogative, and that's about extending it to all the things that you produce. The final prong is the peer pressure pyramid of positivity, and we think of this as going and encouraging others to do things and sharing information and knowledge, and how that can help spread. So we're going to start with the first prong, personal practices.
So the first prong of our triple-pronged plan to preserve the planet is personal practices. Consider this the first step because it's probably the easiest way to get started, and it's also necessary to walk your talk. It's a lot harder to convince people to do things if they get any sense of hypocrisy. There's many ways to do this. We're going to touch on a few things that we've considered and that you should probably consider with your business. There's a lot more than what we're going to cover. So one of the examples is thinking about your commute. As far as minimizing the carbon emissions, the footprint of your commute. There's a lot of different things you can do. With the technology of these days, you can telecommute, work from home. If you're fortunate enough to have even more futuristic technology, you can holocommute. This is very exciting innovation. It's good old-fashioned walking. If you're not quite that close to work, you can ride a bike. An alternative, if it's too far to bike, this is what we do most of the time, is we take the bus. And then if you're really lucky, you can have driving a car. Some other things you can think about is cleaning up your workspace. Things like making sure insulation's up to par, you got efficient HVAC. We've recently made sure all the lighting in our studio is LED. This will be a nice addition for any studio environment. And then some common sense stuff, something that a lot of people tend to be lazy about, like turning off the computer when you leave for work.
The other thing you do is waste reduction. So everyone can recycle, hopefully, unless you live in Arkansas or something. Sorry, Arkansas viewers. And compost, if you have it in your city. We compost in our office. It's awesome because our trash output is so small. This is a real one. Use unbleached toilet paper. Why are we wiping our asses with white paper? That doesn't make any sense. So seek this out. Most of the time it'll be recycled. This one's always good. It's yellow, but it's mellow. Plastic. And if you want to push it further, we're just kidding, obviously. That's disgusting. Don't do that. And for the things that you can't do, you can consider doing carbon offsets for the remainder. So there's just certain things you can eliminate or reduce very effectively, and carbon offsets work to fund positive impact initiatives. So that can include building a new wind farm, capturing methane gas, things like that. We use TerraPass to calculate our studio's footprint, and we spend a lot of time figuring out the details and going through it. And we have these different categories: energy, our commute, shipping, we ship posters and that sort of thing. The server, which is the server that our website is run on, and Dropbox and all the Google apps, you name it. All of that stuff, considering the footprint of that. And the total is, for us, around 2 megatons. And what that translates to offset our business is about $26, which is nothing per year. And this is because we've done a lot of different steps to try to mitigate our carbon footprint. But it kind of gives you an idea of what carbon offsets can do and how much they cost.
All right, see if I can make this 2 for 2. The second prong in a triple-pronged plan to preserve the planet is production is your prerogative. So this is about supplying sustainable practices to the things that you produce. So typically the way this works in our industry, the creative stuff is handled by the designer. And then for production, it's sent out to somebody else, a print shop or a dev shop if it's a digital product. And the part that's in between, all the decisions that get made, tends to be kind of a gray area. Some people do things differently, some people just kind of put blinders on to that. Often we see the decisions getting left into the hands of the person that's like printing the piece at the print shop. And you're just saying like, nah, pick the paper that you want or run it, whatever makes sense. You're not doing your own research. Sometimes it's left into the hands of the client. You just give them the artwork and just let them figure it out for themselves. I think that's probably the worst option most of the time. But we like to think that the designer should really be handling that. It's just a matter of maintaining control. It's making sure there's no weak links in the chain so that you can make sure that you're delivering something that delivers on all 3 of the aspects of good design that we talked about earlier. Let's see. A lot of designers feel hesitant to take this initiative. It's a little scary, or they just don't want to deal with it, or they think that it's not their place to begin with. They're not taught in school how to handle this, how to pick paper, how to pick processes. But we're trying to encourage people and let them know that power is yours. As you can probably guess, facilitating this kind of thing takes a lot of time for research, communication, and time equals money, of course. So we found that in order to oversee production, we have to kind of plan for that from the get-go. So it's always worked into our budgets ahead of time. This is a breakdown, an actual breakdown of what we allot for like a business card, a really small print job. You can see that production oversight takes up a pretty big chunk of it. Depending on the project, the ratio will change quite a bit. It might be really small for certain things, it might be really large for packaging or something like that. But that's the breakdown, and we don't offer print design without overseeing production and having a hand in that.
So when we were talking about print design and production oversight, most of the time we're talking about printed matter of all sorts, business cards, books, packaging, t-shirts, totes, everything in between. A lot of different factors to consider when you're implementing sustainable production. The first one is to choose good materials, the paper, ink, packaging, paper coatings that are the coatings that are going on top of the paper. The less material is really important, just using fewer materials in general. The size, ink, the coverage, quantity, trim waste, a lot of different factors there. Energy use, the actual production footprint of the materials you're using, and the processes, so the make-ready and byproducts for the different things that you might be producing. Shipping responsibly is not something that people ever really think about very much, but if you're shipping something overnight, that's being shipped by plane, and the plane has significantly bigger carbon footprint than a truck does, or a boat, or whatever it is. And also thinking about the distance from the paper mill to where your piece is getting printed. So if you're getting paper from Europe and it's flying halfway around the world, then it's going to negate the whatever eco credentials it might have. End of life cycle, a lot of times green designers talk about designing backwards, starting for the very end of the life cycle, thinking about what's going to happen with this product when it's finished. Is it going to go into recycling bin? Is it going to landfill? And then working backwards from there. This is a quick case study of something that we're pretty proud of, and we spent a lot of time researching, and it was definitely a win for us. This is a tote bag that we did for a client, Huckle & Goose. And first of all, it's a reusable tote, and so from the get-go it has good credentials. It's replacing countless bags, that sort of thing. Organic cotton was used to make this bag, which is awesome because organic cotton uses less chemicals. Cotton is actually the most chemically intensive crop in the world, between the pesticides and herbicides that are used on it. But typically when you get organic cotton, it won't be from here. It'll be grown somewhere else. I think Turkey, India, and China are the 3 largest producers of organic cotton. The US does produce organic cotton, but not a lot. It's growing. But we found a manufacturer that grows cotton in Texas. And then also the weaving can happen somewhere else too. So they take the cotton, ship it off to overseas to get produced into a fabric, and then ship back to the United States or wherever it's going to be produced. So we found that the material that we spec'd was going from Texas to North Carolina, and then finally it was cut and sewn in the USA as well. So production, every step of the way, was considered and made sure that it's as eco as possible. The label is even made in the USA, which sounds kind of silly, but it's really hard to find a woven label that manufactured in the United States unless you're doing $1 billion. And for this particular client, we created some fun in the tag, so it kind of builds trust with the person who's reading it, right? That they're doing the right thing. And also it's funny. I think my favorite one is do not use tote as slang for totally. And so, it has a purpose there. It's doing good for good's sake, but also there's benefits to the business. One of the things that we think about a lot when it comes, or we talk about a lot when it comes to sustainable print production is paper. And it's really one of the easiest ways that you can make a difference. This is a quote from Brian Doherty, who wrote a great book on green design if you're interested. Specifying green paper is one of the simplest things a green graphic designer can do. It only requires knowledge and the will to break the status quo. Really, it's like, we call it the gateway drug of green design. So we have this little guide that we're going to show you a quick example of one of the components of it. So by far the most important factor in what kind of paper you're choosing is the fibers. So most of the time, or a lot of the times, the other factors of paper are dictated by the fibers. So why do we want to use recycled paper and recycled fibers? This is from the EPA, some statistics. A ton of recycled paper results in 64% less energy used, 17 trees preserved that weren't chopped down, 7,000 gallons of water. Just imagine gallon milk jugs, 7,000 of them. It's pretty astounding. 5 times more jobs created. There's a lot more pieces in the production chain to get the fibers reclaimed back to reusable material. That creates more jobs, and then less air pollution, which I heard somebody coughing earlier. Use recycled paper. We also did some of our own research because we didn't feel like it was very thorough, and so we went above and beyond. We found that people 70 to 130% more likes on their selfies. Something that we found, and also that people experience 17% fewer pebbles trapped in their shoe, which is a great thing. So here's a quick breakdown of all the different pieces that go into what an eco paper is. Fiber source, bleaching, energy source, shipping, and coatings, and there's even more to this. But like we said, the most important one is fibers, so we'll show you a quick breakdown of the sort of levels, the good, bad, and the ugly of fibers. The recycled content, we're starting with avoid. So this is no recycled content. Definitely a bad thing if you have no recycled content. The middle ground is sort of mixed paper, like a FSC mixed sources, maybe only like half the woodland creatures. Sometimes this is honestly the most economical decision for a job because it's a lot of times the most economical choice in terms of the cost. And the best that you can do is 100% post-consumer recycled. And so PCW is post-consumer waste, and that means that the stuff that you're throwing into your recycling bin or someone else is getting made into paper and reclaimed, and that's really important for, I think there's 7 generations for recycled paper. We want to make sure that there's a market for that, and it saves so much energy to use post-consumer, specifically fibers. And you don't need to be working on a really complex, multi-piece, large project to make an impact. We started with like things that were quantity 500 or like 200. Business cards is a great example. So we're showing you some of the business cards. Each one of the cards that we're showing is a little bit smaller than the average size card. If you don't use Rolodexes anymore, you don't have to do the 2 by 3.5 or whatever it is. They're all functional. They're all printed on 100% recycled paper. Still find a way to stand out from the crowd, or in this case, feel really sophisticated. Just because it's eco doesn't mean that it has to be printed on, a craft paper, brown bag, whatever, or then stamped on the back of cereal boxes. You can do something like this that is really, nice and high-end and sophisticated, but that's also super eco. And Richard's going to discuss a little bit about how sustainability applies to the digital environment, which is something that most of us aren't familiar with.
So a lot of people tend not to think about energy usage on the digital side of things. I think that's because it's kind of like this magical thing that's invisible and out of sight. But it is using a lot of energy, and it's growing pretty quickly. In 2013, just the data centers were using up about 91 billion kilowatt hours. And what does that mean? That's about 34 large coal plants for a year. By 2020, it's projected to be 140 billion kilowatt hours. And that would add up to about 100 million metric tons of carbon pollution per year. And this doesn't even cover the energy we're using on our devices and computers and all of that to interact with the data. That data we couldn't really find solid numbers on. It's a really hard thing to estimate. As designers, we have a direct impact to influence making a positive change in the internet's carbon footprint. And there's 2 different main things to consider with that. There's the energy source, so that's what's powering our digital products. And then the energy use, so just how much of the energy you're using up. With energy usage, it's all about efficiency. Things like page requests, page size, render time. All this stuff is like growing out of control. Sites are getting bigger on average. But I think there's a trend kind of going towards minimizing things as much as you can, back towards optimization with the rise of the mobile web. So that's pretty good. The important thing really is to be aware of what you can do, whatever your role is, to minimize the energy usage. Whether you're like a designer or if you're creating content, just to be mindful of it, to be selective, fewer photos, maybe more impact in condensed impact. If you're a developer, just being aware of what you can do to minimize and optimize, all that good stuff. And like the same thing with print, I think it helps to plan for this ahead of time because it tends to get forgotten at the end if you're just trying to reach a launch date or fit inside a budget. So, if you set a budget ahead of time, it's just some random numbers, but just to have something set aside for optimizing things. And then to set performance goals, like a render time you're shooting for, a certain internet speed, or a speed score on analyzation tools that check how well your site performs. And when we're talking about energy, we mentioned the technology, but it's also important to think about the user. Basically, what I mean by that is the amount of time the user's interacting with something, trying to get something done, the more energy they're using. So wasted time is the same thing as wasted energy. Another way to think of this is good user experience. That's already a goal, which is pretty cool. Good UX is green UX. So, and this is just basically this means that UX is a pretty complex thing, but to distill it really quickly, it means figuring out the goals and making it easy for the user to achieve them quickly and efficiently. Like an intuitive navigation or the hierarchy, making sure the things that are going to be done most often are easiest to do, easiest to find. So a couple case studies, a really quick one. This is the Finkel and Garf site, and we figured that a lot of people that are going to the site just kind of want to check the hours. So we have that at the very top always, and it's always today's hours. It changes automatically. And then here's another example. This is Roger the barber. He's a barber in Boulder, and most of the time there's just a few things you need to know when you go to a site for a barber. We have the appointment information. You need to know that that's the way to do things for him. That's the recommended course of action. We got the price right away, so people try to hide this, make it difficult to find, or they don't show it. But people want to know this before they go in. He's got a chemical sensitivity that people need to be aware of if they're going to be his customer. And then the location information and a way to make an appointment. So that's all taken care of before you even have to scroll no matter what device you're on. And then if you want to find more information, you just go down, and that's where the big banner image is, and that's where the extra text is. Kind of flip-flopping the order of things that most people would do, because we know this is a site where people aren't going to read a lot, most often. The other thing I mentioned was the energy source. This could be where you can have the biggest impact, actually, with the web. With the energy source, that's just the power that's going to your devices, to the servers, what kind of power is being used. Is it renewable? Is it coal? Mostly coal. You don't really have control over what's being powered on the user's end, but you do have control over what's being powered on the server side. Most of the energy goes towards keeping the servers cool and just keeping them running. So you can't make a huge impact just by the optimization stuff we talked about. Still important, but way bigger impact can be made with the actual energy source. If you have, the best way to do this is to specify a green host, someone that's powered by wind or any other renewable energy, or offsetting their energy with these things. A good way to find out how to do that is to go to this Green Web Foundation. We found this online. They have kind of a curated list by country of known green hosts. Oftentimes the list is pretty small these days, and oftentimes you need to go outside of this list for bigger sites, things that need to perform really, really high, big audiences. In those cases, you can go back and just offset it yourself. If you recall, when we talked about our studio stuff, our server offset was about 3,000 pounds. That's for one entire dedicated server for a year, which is pretty rare for your needs, for most people's needs. Usually one server has a multitude of sites on it, although we try to get some hosts to tell us how many so we can do the calculations, and nobody gives that information out. So, but our best judgment, our best guess, educated guess, is that this 1,000 pounds is usually like the minimum purchase of an offset, way than plenty cover the offsets for a site. It's pretty cheap.
So the final prong in the triple-pronged plan to preserve the planet is peer pressure pyramid of positivity. Like we said, this is about influencing others and having that exponential effect. The first thing we can do is to be selective with our clients. This is one of the reasons that we started our own business, was to have that level of control, make sure we're not working for shitty people. So to support clients that cultivate positivity, it's really important that if you're a great designer, that you're only working with good companies, and sometimes that can be difficult. There's a lot of different factors that go into that, but to add on to that, also be open to clients who are moving in the right direction. Maybe they're in a sector that's really wasteful. Maybe they're in graphic design. But be open to clients who are willing to make positive steps. That's really important. Also, for clients who aren't interested in that, tell them to go to hell. Don't work with those people. Just don't do it. And we've actually turned down a lot of projects based on ethical reasons, and some of them are pretty wild, that hopefully most people in this room would turn down. For privacy purposes, only 3 of the 4 are true. The first one is bullet-shaped bath soaps. Who wouldn't want some violence with a relaxing bath? On-demand lobsters shipped to your doorstep. Live. Yeah, that's interesting. Or was it interesting? Anti-aging supplements for dogs. I'm just going to say this one's real. That exists, and hopefully no one in here is taking those. Artisanal baby seal. I knew that was. Next part of that is to work with your people and also influence your clients, right? So if you're thinking all these green thoughts, your client, you know, discuss with them. They're also going to have can share that with you and educate each other and continue the cycle. Oops.
Oh yeah, so once you have, you know, like I discussed, once you've curated your list of carefully selected clients, you want to be a good influence on them as much as you can. You know, some clients are already like-minded, and all it really takes is some dialogue to plant the seed into them. They just need to know what to do, and they're already open to doing it. Other clients are not quite there yet. They might have other things that are driving decisions. This is not a problem. You just need to rearrange how you do things and make sure you're speaking their language. You know, well, this is called, you know, providing return on investment, so or an ROI. You might have heard that before. But what we're doing is you're telling them how this can help their business in bottom line terms. And we're taking the extra effort to make sure that what we're doing is helping them that way, because we know that will help them to enact on these things. So one of those things is brand loyalty. So, you know, our policy or our thought is that people want to support people that are doing good things. And if you're doing good things, you want to make them aware of it. It'll help cultivate these trends, and it'll kind of raise everything all together. So here's an example. These labels are for this one here, Distillery. They're getting printed pretty soon, actually, probably in the next couple weeks. But what we did is highlight you know, the various things that they were doing, the responsible decisions they were making, trying to make it fun and engaging and eye-catching and all that. You know, so we created this icon, this crafted with eco-friendly ingredients that will be changed to organic ingredients once they get their certification. We're working on that, and we worked this little bit about their mission to preserving the outdoors into their namesake description that we wrote, and then a couple other touches highlighted their One for the Planet membership and the fact that they use 100% post-consumer waste on these labels. You know, aside from trying to establish the brand loyalty aspect, there's just straight up cost savings. This one's probably one of the easiest ways to get people on board. It's really easy to see. Here's an example we just recently did. This is a little booklet, a real estate listing booklet. And the original specification was 7 by 10 inch. We took some calculations. We found the size of the press sheet they were printing on, and we modified the dimensions just a little bit to 6 by 8.75. And just this change saved over 1,000 sheets of paper, and $600 for the client. So they're excited about that. Totally on board. Another quick example is when we were choosing the bottles for whistling here. This was the bottle we saw. If you go to the shelves and you look at like bottles of rum and whiskey, you'll see this bottle over and over and over again. Everybody's using it. And this was the first one that the client was looking at, what they were leaning towards. And we were looking for something lighter. We just knew that the lighter something would be, the more eco-friendly it would be as far as shipping goes. And we found this one. And both these bottles hold the same amount of liquid. Really the only difference is the base. It's just a solid piece of, like a solid section of glass at the bottom of that first one. And it's not a functional thing, we found out. We talked to somebody in the industry and he said that the reason is just to make it feel a little bit more luxurious and to make it look fuller. So the client was a little bit wavering on that and we wanted to convince him to go with the lighter one. So we did a little bit of math, found out how many bottles are per pallet, and then calculated that the first bottle was about almost 1,500 pounds per pallet, and the second bottle was 1,162 per pallet. That's 336 pounds for every single pallet, and there's multiple pallets on a truck. And the client was easily able to see how that could add up over time with all the shipping going, you know, to get bottled and then shipping it back out to the vendors. And then it was an easy decision for them from that point on.
So, just kind of gave you a couple examples of things that we've done and your case studies. Also, really important is to enable your peers and be positive and help. So this is a quote from Ann Chick. In the future, it will be extremely difficult, if not even impossible, for something to be considered good design if its environmental effects have not been taken into account. This is actually a quote from 1992. Hopefully we reach this time period in the next 20 years or so. Hopefully tomorrow, we'll see. But really important part is to not to be positive and to help other people move towards that future. So don't guilt trip and say like, why are you using non-recycled paper, stuff like that. You want to you're gonna get negative feedback, and so you want to be positive about it. And if somebody's taking some good steps, facilitate that. Another important part is to share what you learned, because green design is really hard. It takes a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of time. It's not an easy pursuit, and figuring out how to do both at the same time is a lot harder. And somebody's trying to learn design and learn green production, and so just being positive and facilitating that. If you find a good solution, try to share it with others in your industry, people that you're close with, other designers, whatever it is. Write about it. If you can tweet about it, Facebook it, and write a blog article. This is an article that we did on our website that shares a bunch of information about adhesive labels. The article is incredibly boring, but if you're doing something in adhesive labels, it's really concise and it gives you good resources for doing something that's super green with adhesive labels. Lectures, which is what we're doing right now. You can talk about it. These are just some of the ways that we're sharing and facilitating the positivity. Resources, this is a notebook that we created, one of our first steps into creating a product. And this notebook was, the purpose of it is to share the knowledge that we've gained and in a condensed form, make it easy for other people to specify a responsible paper for the next print project. And if you guys stick around after the Q&A, we have a bunch of these to give away for free, if you're interested in doing that. They're not gifts for nieces and things like that. Everyone use them. Transparency, this is something that we've done that we found to be really helpful. We used to get a lot of questions on what kind of paper you're using, that sort of thing. On our website, we list out all of the specs of the project, what the print processes, or what print processes we're using, what inks, what paper we're using, what all the coatings, and every piece of it is listed in detail so that people can go and directly adapt this knowledge to their print project and get there faster than we did. So that is a few different ways that we're taking that initiative to spread that. And we want you guys to take action as well and initiate things that are environmentally responsible, get into whatever it is you're doing, try to make good choices, and then help affect others as well.
All right, so those are the prongs. And we'll do a quick recap here, because we know it was a pretty long one. First prong, personal practices, the things that you consume yourself. We've learned about the commute, things you can do in your work area, and the changes you can make in your studio. Second prong was production is your prerogative. We learned that the most important thing really was to take the initiative from the get-go. We learned a little bit about the types of decisions you have to make to choose responsible production, and apply that also to the digital world.
We also discussed the peer pressure pyramid of positivity in the Triple-Pronged plan to preserve the planet. And we talked about being selective with your clients, turning down ones who aren't good, and influencing and helping ones facilitating great work for those who are. And also to help others in your industry do the same. And that is the Triple-Pronged plan to preserve the planet. Follow us along on social media, stuff like that. We'd love to, we have a lot of different ways that we connect with people, and we'd love to help out if you have questions, that sort of thing. So we're gonna, RJ's gonna say a few words, and we're gonna have a minute to sort of break, and if you don't want to stick around for the Q&A, we went a little bit long. You guys are totally welcome to go, And then if you do want to stick around and ask some questions, we'd love to have you. And we'll have some notebooks and stuff as well. So that's it.